It started as a much-anticipated episode of The View with two Hollywood legends scheduled to appear side by side, Clint Eastwood and Robert De Niro. The producers promoted it as a powerful moment of cinema history, two giants sharing stories, insights, and maybe even a little friendly banter. But no one expected sparks to fly the way they did. From the moment the cameras started rolling, there was a tension in the air, one that viewers picked up on almost immediately. The two stars, once cordial, seemed anything but friendly this time around. Clint Eastwood, calm and composed, walked on set with his usual quiet intensity. Robert De Niro followed shortly after, exuding his typical sharp presence and sly grin. The co-hosts welcomed him warmly, hoping to dive into questions about their long careers, iconic roles, and views on modern Hollywood. But the conversation took a strange turn as De Niro began to steer the topic toward politics, something Eastwood is known to have strong and often controversial opinions about. The tension began simmering subtly at first, but it didn't stay that way for long. Robert De Niro made a few indirect jabs at celebrities who use their legacy to defend outdated ideologies, a comment that visibly agitated Eastwood. He leaned forward slightly, narrowing his eyes but saying nothing. The co-hosts, sensing the discomfort, tried to redirect the topic back to filmmaking, but De Niro wasn't done. He pressed further, criticizing the tone of macho Americana often found in Eastwood's movies, calling it dangerously nostalgic and out of step with modern values. That's when the real clash began to unfold. Eastwood didn't take kindly to the criticism. His reply was sharp, measured, and unmistakably pointed. "I don't make movies to preach, Bob," he said. "I make stories people can connect with. If you've got a problem with grit and tradition, maybe it says more about you than it does about me." The audience gasped slightly, and the tension exploded on social media almost instantly. The energy in the room had shifted. This was no longer a casual Hollywood chat, it was a live, national confrontation between two titans of cinema. De Niro shot back quickly, "I think it's dangerous when we glorify a version of America that never really existed, Clint, and pretending like everything was better way back then just erases the pain a lot of people lived through." Eastwood responded with, "In rewriting the past to fit a modern narrative isn't drama, it's propaganda." The co-hosts once again attempted to mediate, but it was clear the gloves had come off. This wasn't just an argument, it was a philosophical war being played out in front of millions of viewers. Things only escalated when Eastwood brought up De Niro's recent outbursts in media appearances. "Seems to me," he said, "you've spent more time yelling at people on red carpets than making movies lately." De Niro's eyes flared with indignation. "Better than romanticizing vigilantes like it's something noble," he fired back. The tension was now so thick you could cut it with a knife. The co-hosts looked completely out of their depth as both actors stood firmly in their ideological corners, refusing to back down or ease up. At one point, Whoopi Goldberg, in an effort to regain control, asked the two to cool it down and refocus on their shared history in the film industry. Eastwood responded briefly but coldly, "I don't mind talking about history, I just don't like when people distort it to sound woke." De Niro muttered something under his breath that was partially picked up by a microphone, something about right-wing cowboys, which clearly set Eastwood off even more. The show was now spiraling into uncharted territory for daytime television. The audience, previously excited, now sat frozen in a mix of discomfort and fascination. You could tell they were witnessing something historic and deeply uncomfortable. Eastwood turned to the producers off camera and said, loud enough for the microphones to catch, "I didn't come here for the scrap. Either he tones it down, or I walk." The ultimatum hung heavy in the air. De Niro, never one to back away from confrontation, barked, "I won't be lectured by a guy who talks to empty chairs," referencing Eastwood's infamous RNC speech years ago. That moment was the breaking point. Eastwood stood up, adjusted his jacket, and faced the panel. "If he stays, I go. I came to have a real conversation and not be insulted by someone playing politics with everything." Producers scrambled behind the scenes, and cameras cut to commercial as chaos unfolded backstage. According to insiders, Eastwood threatened to walk off the set unless De Niro was removed. Tensions boiled over completely off camera, with security and assistants stepping in to manage the two men before the situation worsened. When the show returned from the break, De Niro was gone. One of the co-hosts addressed the audience, saying, "We've had a bit of a situation backstage, and unfortunately Robert De Niro had to leave early." But it was clear to everyone watching that he hadn't left voluntarily. Within minutes, tabloids and news outlets ran with headlines like "Eastwood kicks De Niro off set," and "Legendary showdown rocks the view." Twitter exploded with reactions, memes, and hot takes. Some viewers sided with Eastwood, others with De Niro, and a full-blown culture war ignited online. Eastwood remained for the final segment of the show, though the mood had shifted significantly. He was quieter, sterner, and clearly annoyed. The co-hosts tiptoed through their remaining questions, trying to salvage what they could of the interview. Clint offered brief answers, rarely smiling, and clearly wanted to be done. "I don't mind disagreement," he said at one point, "but when it becomes personal, it's not a conversation anymore. Yeah, it's a spectacle, and I've had enough of those in my life already." Meanwhile, De Niro's representatives released a short statement that afternoon claiming the actor chose to leave due to an unexpected breakdown in mutual respect. Eastwood's camp, however, gave a very different account, saying Clint requested the show handle the escalating situation professionally, and when that didn't happen, steps were taken. Neither side took full responsibility, but the message was clear: these two weren't just clashing on screen, they represented two entirely different worldviews now at war in Hollywood. Industry insiders began speculating about the deeper causes behind the feud. "There's been friction for years," said one anonymous director. "They have wildly different ideas about what movie USA and America should look like." Others suggested that the confrontation was inevitable, with both a men known for their fiery personalities and lack of filter. Whatever the reason, it was now official: Clint Eastwood and Robert De Niro would not be working together anytime soon, and their on-screen spat would go down as one of the most shocking moments in live TV history. Social media only amplified the drama. Hashtags like #Eastwood vs. De Niro and #The View Meltdown trended for days. Talk shows, podcasts, and news panels dissected every second of the clash, with pundits analyzing what it said about politics, masculinity, generational divides, and Hollywood's identity crisis. Memes circulated with lines from both men, gifs of Eastwood standing up, and endless speculation about what happened behind the scenes during the commercial break. Viewers weren't just reacting, they were taking sides. In the days that followed, both actors went quiet. No official interviews, no new appearances, just silence from two of the loudest voices in entertainment. But that silence only made the moment more iconic. For many fans, the incident confirmed long-held assumptions about both Amina Eastwood as the no-nonsense traditionalist unwilling to bend, and De Niro as the outspoken progressive pushing back against that legacy. For others, it was just another example of how fractured Hollywood and America has become. Eventually, De Niro made a subtle jab during a different interview, saying, "Some folks are still living in their own westerns, thinking they're the sheriff of the world." Eastwood, in a rare radio appearance, replied vaguely, "People can say what they want, but I'm not interested in fiction dressed up as righteousness." Neither mentioned The View by name, but the message was clear. The wounds from their televised blow-up hadn't healed and perhaps never would. The divide between them, both artistic and ideological, was now set in stone. In the end, the fallout from the clash became bigger than the moment itself. What was meant to be a nostalgic celebration of cinematic greatness turned into a generational standoff that symbolized everything from political rifts to cultural identity struggles. The moment Clint Eastwood asked for De Niro to be removed and got his wire marked a new chapter in celebrity discourse, raw, unfiltered, and utterly unpredictable. For better or worse, it was a reminder that even Hollywood legends are not immune to the fire of live television.